Rainshadow is a route that's tested me in so many ways. If I'm honest, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I've had trips where I've come away feeling absolutely certain I'll do it next time. Really confident, really excited, like everything's finally lining up, and it's only a matter of time. And that feeling is amazing. It gives me so much energy. But then a bit of time passes, and that confidence starts to shift. I start thinking about the route too much, I kind of ruminate on it, and slowly that confidence stops feeling light and exciting and starts to feel really quite heavy. It turns into pressure. Then I come back on the route next trip and I'm sitting beneath the route feeling stressed, anxious and weirdly unready. I've barely slept, I'm frustrated because I know how much work I've put in. But in that moment, I just don't feel calm or clear. And for me, the times I've struggled most on that route have usually been the times I've expected it to happen. The times I've become too attached to the send and not attached enough to the quality of the process that actually gets me there. And I think process is a really important part of climbing, because identifying the problem is one thing, but turning that clarity into progress is something else entirely. My name's Matt Wright. I'm an outdoor performance coach and a passionate UK rock climber. In my last episode, I spoke about diagnosis, the process of figuring out what's really holding you back as a climber. Because very often, the thing that feels like the problem isn't actually the real problem. And until you understand that, it's very difficult to make meaningful progress. So in this episode, I would like to talk about what comes next. Because once you've got that clarity, the real challenge becomes, how do you actually turn that into progress? How do you take what you've learned about your climbing and apply it in a way that feels structured, consistent, and effective? And that's what I'd like to walk you through today. Now, it's worth saying, not everyone starts with diagnosis. Some people start with a clear goal. They have a route in mind that they want to climb, or a grade they want to reach, or a style they want to improve in. And in many ways, that's actually a great place to start, because a clear goal naturally exposes your limitations. But in my experience, most climbers don't actually have that level of clarity. A lot of people want to become better climbers, stronger, more capable, more well-rounded. And that's where a diagnostic approach becomes really useful, because it gives you direction. When you don't yet have a clear target, it helps you decide what actually matters instead of just guessing or following trends. As climbers, we only have a limited amount of time, energy, effort, attention and focus. These are our resources. And when we spread those resources too thin, the quality of everything starts to drop. Training loses intent. Recovery becomes inconsistent. Attention gets divided. And instead of moving forward, you end up moving from side to side, getting pulled around by new ideas, new trends, and inconsistency becomes a real problem. And that's often what leads to these long plateaus that we all want to avoid. So once you've got clarity, whether that comes from diagnosis or from a goal, the next step is to direct your resources properly. I think everyone should start with ironing out the foundation. The foundation of climbing performance is built on a few key areas: strength, technique, psychology, and lifestyle. If any one of these areas are a clear limitation, that's where the problem solving should start, because everything else sits on top of that. Things like power endurance, pacing, efficiency, and overall capacity, they matter a lot, but they're secondary. They should be layered on top once the foundation is solid. If the foundation isn't in place, those higher level qualities become harder to build, harder to transfer, and they're harder to maintain. And I think that lifestyle is the one that often gets overlooked the most. Your lifestyle is the bedrock of your performance. If your sleep is inconsistent, your nutrition isn't supporting your energy and recovery, your routine is chaotic, or you don't have enough time to relax and therefore recover properly, then it doesn't really matter how good your training plan is. It just won't land properly. So before you add more or chase complexity, you need to make sure your foundation actually supports what you're trying to do. Your lifestyle should support your climbing, not the other way around, because it's essential to understand that when your lifestyle is consistent, your recovery also becomes consistent. And when your recovery is consistent, your training quality improves. And when your training quality improves, progress becomes much more stable and much more linear. So once you've identified a limitation, the next step is to choose a goal that actually expresses it. Something real, something measurable, something that clearly exposes that weakness. Not just a grade, not just a physical metric. I think you need a climb. Something physical you can actually apply yourself to, where the limitation shows up every time you try it. That way, you can track your progress over time against something consistent, rather than guessing based on how things feel. For me, Rainshadow has been exactly that. It's not just a goal, it's a tool. It's something I've used over the years to expose a weakness in my climbing, my poor ability on open hand grips. Rainshadow gives me a constant, consistent medium to keep coming back to and test myself on. And I think that's where it's really important to understand that your limitations and your goals work best when they're hand in hand. They need to be thought about carefully. I didn't just choose Rainshadow because it exposes my weaknesses. I chose it because I love the route. Honestly, it's absolutely beautiful. It's so inspiring. But at the same time, I also want to become the best climber I can be. And I can't do that if I only stick at what I'm good at. That being said, it's important to remember that you should only focus on limitations that are only really relevant to the goals that you've got in mind. So the question becomes, what comes first, the limitation or the goal? And the answer is, it depends on what you really want at your core. For me, it's not just about climbing Rainshadow, and it's not just about climbing 19A. What I really want is to feel competent across the board, to be able to turn up to a wide range of climbs and feel confident that if I commit to the process, I can give them a proper go. It's important to understand that within reason, you can do most things if you put your mind to it, but you can't do everything. I'm probably not going to climb every single 9A in Britain, but I do want to feel confident that I can approach the most inspiring routes with clarity, confidence, and a good understanding of what they demand. And out of all the 9As I've tried, Rainshadow felt like the most intimidating for me. So that's the one I chose to focus on. When I was in my early 20s, I was looking for my first 9A. I'd already climbed Evolution, my first 8C+, which suited me perfectly. It was really technical and really sustained, mostly on in-cut holds. So every time I tried it, I just got a little bit further each go, just to move further every session. So it was a really positive process and I didn't really feel like I plateaued much on it. Shortly after Evolution, I tried Hubble, which was so exciting as I dreamt about this route ever since I first started climbing. But I could tell pretty quickly that I just wasn't ready. I wasn't strong enough. I needed to be stronger, a lot stronger. I then tried Rainshadow, and Rainshadow was completely different. The style forced me onto these open hand grips into positions I wasn't comfortable in and required a completely different application of strength. It exposed a real limitation. At first, I kind of thought I could do it, but after my first 10 sessions, I hadn't even done the crux clean, not even once. But I absolutely loved it, and more importantly, I knew it was showing me exactly what I needed to improve. Over time, I shaped my climbing around that. A big part of why I moved to Dumbarton is to develop that open hand style. If I'd only focused purely on my strengths, I think I might have been able to climb a few more 9As by now. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted to improve at what was holding me back. And even though I haven't climbed Rainshadow yet, the progress I've made is huge. I did actually climb Hubble the following season, but grades don't really tell the full story because the difference in my ability on Rainshadow now compared to before is massive. And that's why grades alone are a poor way of measuring progress, because progress in climbing is subtle. But if you know how to pay attention, it becomes actually quite clear. So once you've got clarity, a goal and direction, the next step is to build structure around it. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They jump straight into doing more sessions, more volume, more intensity. But without structure, effort becomes messy. And once effort becomes messy, the quality drops. And there's one more piece that sits right in the middle of all this, and that's how you relate to the outcome. Because once you've got a goal, it's very easy to get attached to it. It's very easy to get attached to sending, attached to the grade, attached to proving something to yourself. And the problem with attachment is that it shifts your attention away from the process. Instead of asking, why do I need to do this well right now? You start asking, is this going to be the go? Am I going to send today? What if I don't? And as soon as that happens, your behaviour changes. You begin to rush. You override decisions. You take less time to prepare. You climb reactively instead of deliberately. And ironically, the more attached you become to the outcome, the less likely you are to achieve it. Because performance in climbing is extremely sensitive to attention. When your attention goes, your performance follows. So if your attention is on the outcome, it's no longer on the things that actually produce the outcome. And this is why being process-driven is so important. Being process-driven doesn't mean you don't care about the goal. It means you understand that the goal is a byproduct of doing the right things consistently over time. So instead of focusing on sending, you focus on executing well, making good decisions, refining beta, staying relaxed, and learning something from every attempt. Because those are the things you can control. The outcome isn't. And this is where a lot of climbers struggle. They try to control the uncontrollable. They want certainty. They want guarantees. They want the send to happen on their terms. But climbing doesn't work like that. There's always uncertainty. The more you try to eliminate that uncertainty through force or effort, the more it works against you. So the shift is this. You stop trying to control the outcome and you start committing fully to the process. Because once the process is good, the outcome takes care of itself. And even when it doesn't, you're still improving. And now every attempt becomes useful and every session moves you forward. And that's what allows you to build real confidence. Not confidence based on sending, but confidence based on knowing that you're doing the right things. And I think there's something else that's really important to understand here, and that's how we think about happiness and enjoyment in climbing. Because there's a lot of pressure these days to always be enjoying what you're doing, to always feel motivated, and to always feel good, and to always feel happy and content. But the reality is, we're not happiness factories, we're human beings. We're not built for constant happiness. We're built to adapt, respond, and solve problems. If your expectation is that climbing or training should always be fun, always feel good, always feel rewarding, you're setting yourself up to struggle. Because if you want to become the best athlete you can be, it's important to understand that it's not always going to be fun. In fact, a lot of the time it won't be. There will be frustration. There will be stagnation. There will be sessions where things feel hard, uncomfortable, and uncertain. And that's not a sign that something's going wrong. It's actually the process working, because adaptation requires stress. Your body, your brain, your nervous system, they only improve when they're exposed to something challenging enough to force change. And that process isn't always enjoyable in the moment. I actually think that one of the best ways to become a happier athlete is to stop expecting to be happy all the time, to stop needing every session to feel good, to stop judging your progress based on whether you enjoyed it. Because the paradox is this: the less attached you are to needing everything to feel good, the more stable your experience becomes. You're no longer on this constant emotional roller coaster of good session, bad session, motivated, unmotivated. You just show up, do the work, and trust the process. And I think this links closely to how people think about success as well. A lot of climbers believe that once they set their goals, that's when they'll feel satisfied. That's when everything will click. That's when they'll feel happy and content. But that's not how it works. You send a climb, and very quickly your attention moves on to the next thing. Because that's human nature. We adapt, we move forward, we look for the next challenge. So if you're relying on outcomes to make you feel fulfilled, you're always going to be chasing something just out of reach. So instead of fighting that, you need to work with it. Accept that you're not always going to feel great. Accept that not every session is going to be enjoyable. Accept that progress involves discomfort. And then shift your focus back to what actually matters. Showing up consistently, executing well, and staying engaged in the process. Because that's where real progress happens. And ironically, that's also where a much more stable form of satisfaction comes from. And that is where I want to introduce the traffic light rule. Because once you've got direction and structure, the next challenge is maintaining quality over time. The traffic light rule is simply a way of tracking whether your training and climbing are actually productive. Every meaningful effort can be judged as green, amber, or red. Green means high quality, good recovery, and sustainable effort. Amber means close to the line, maintain. Red means quality has dropped, recovery is poor, so you need to reduce. And the process of this isn't just progression, it's protection. It protects quality, because quality and attention to detail are everything in climbing. The difference between scraping through a move and executing it cleanly can massively change the energy cost. And over time, those differences add up. When you're fresh, climbing becomes really smooth. When you're fatigued, it becomes reactive. And once it becomes reactive, your performance drops. And that is where a lot of climbers get it wrong. They confuse tiredness with progress. They think that if they're exhausted, it must be working. But all that really tells you is that you've accumulated fatigue. It doesn't tell you that the work was high quality. So the goal isn't just to get tired. The goal is to do just enough high quality work to improve, while still fresh enough to repeat that quality again. And I think this is where everything comes together. Because a lot of climbers assume the answer is more effort, more attempts, or more intensity. But often the real answer is better observation, better structure, and a calmer, more deliberate process. So the process becomes simple. Diagnose clearly. Choose a goal that expresses the limitation. Build structure around it. Commit to the process, not the outcome. Accept that discomfort comes with real adaptation, and protect quality along the way. That's how you turn clarity into progress. Thanks for listening to episode 4 of A Climber's Mind. I really appreciate you being here, and if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please just let me know.